All right, everybody, welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. This is the show that we cover the SWAC inside and out as usual. And I am your tour guide around the SWAC Sea Wells coming at you. And today we're going to just talk a little bit of future of SWAC scheduling. There's a lot of conference expansion and things going around. You got UCLA and USC joining the Big Ten. And I'm sure they're going to have some ramifications in the FCS because of that. Once teams start poaching, they're going to have some teams move up, and that's going to probably affect the FCS level. But I'm not really going to talk about that today. I'll say that for another time. Although I do have some theories to throw out there in case some things happen. But I don't really want to talk about that today. I just want to talk about how what kind of different changes the SWAC can make in scheduling in the future. This is conference scheduling. This has nothing to do with non-conference games. This is all conference scheduling. So I'm just gonna run through a couple of different scenarios that I thought of, that I seen people bat around and wanted to try myself and see how they work. So with that being said, as usual, the socials are on the screen down below. Facebook is SWAC Talk, Instagram is SWAC Talk, Twitter SWAC Talk 76, and the Gmail is swagtalk76 at gmail.com. Of course, if you would love to support the show, I would greatly appreciate it. Just trying to grow the production values of everything, and just if you want to just show a little love and support, you can hit the Cash App. The information is on the screen. Feel free to do that if you would like. Other than that, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that notification bell, because as you see the last few weeks, man, we've been pretty busy with guests and stuff. So, those don't come on the regular scheduled days. So make sure that you check that out by hitting that notification bell, and you won't miss any episodes that drop. You won't have to try to scramble and find something, or realize that something dropped and you didn't know it was there. So make sure you hit that notification bell. Feel free to share the videos, like them, and comment. Let me know what you think about the future of SWAC scheduling. Also, got the 50th episode of SWAC Smoke coming up in a couple weeks. So make sure you check that out. We're gonna have a lot of fun with that. We've already rapidly approaching number 50. So we want to make that a special thing. So make sure you tune in for that in a couple weeks. This week, probably drop another episode of SWAC Talk on Wednesday, and if anything else drops in between, you hit that notification bell and you'll know it's there. So with all that out the way, man, let's go ahead and get into this topic, the future of SWAC scheduling. To me, my inspiration for this came because the ACC dropped their divisions. They dropped their Atlantic and Coastal divisions, and now they're going into in 2023. They're going to start just having a divisionless conference. Everybody plays, certain teams. Everybody's assigned three permanent rivals, I guess you could call them, and then they rotate everybody else. Because in that league, they weren't playing everybody. You would go multiple years without playing certain teams because the way the rotations and everything set up. So they wanted to kind of get that to be freshened up. So they went to a non-division system. The top two teams in the conference with the top two records go to the conference championship. So no Coastal Division winner, no Atlantic Division winner meeting in the championship. Just the two top teams meeting the championship. And obviously, if there's some ties, you have tiebreakers involved for that. So I thought, that was something that would be good to talk about with the SWAC. I know a lot of people have kind of said that, divisions in the SWAC aren't really meaningful, or they, they can be done away with, because a lot of people felt like the two best teams last season didn't meet in the championship. FAMU and JSU were the two best teams in the conference, and that's no disrespect to Prairie View, because they put in work and they did what they had to do to get to the championship. But some people felt that, they wanted to see a rematch between JSU and FAMU, and the system did not allow that. So if there was a divisionless system or another kind of scheduling system, you can have that matchup. Although I will say on the flip side, if that was the case, then we would not have gotten a team into the playoffs. So that's something to take into account when you look at this setup. This could easily, if you're a playoff type of person, this could easily cost you one of a possible playoff team, because they will be playing in a championship game instead of in the playoffs. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. This is not a, not a foolproof system. There's holes in it. You can probably pick apart if you even try it. So just wanted to go ahead and talk about this. So let's start my first with my first scenario, and that's a 3-4 team pod system. I know that looks crazy, wrote out like that, but I didn't want to have a 3 and a 4. It just looks kind of crazy to me. Basically, pods and divisions are basically the same. A lot of people love to use the term pod instead of division because they can make it sound like that's a smaller entity. So these would be 3-4 team divisions or 3-4 team pods, whatever you want to call them. And obviously, with 3 of those, you won't have, you won't take, each pod winner, division winner would not go to championship. You would still take your top 2 teams. So you could easily have 2 teams in the same pod, make the championship if they, if they only lost, if one team in let's say pod 1 only lost to another team in pod 1 and they didn't lose no more games, then those 2 teams, could meet if the other team went undefeated, or if they lost, whatever. But so that's how that can kind of shape up. So for my idea with the pod system, I wanted to try to I wanted to preserve rivalries because there's a lot of rivalries that are really entrenched in the conference, and I didn't want to break them up as much as possible. And 2, I wanted to keep it efficient for travel for your divisional games. I mean, obviously you're gonna have to go, across the league for certain games, but I wanted to keep the division pod games close together. So for my first pod, I had FAMU, Bethune-Cookman, Alabama State, and Alabama A&M. Pod 2, I had Jackson, Alcorn, Valley, and Pine Bluff. And pod 3, Southern, Grambling, Prairie View, and Texas Southern. So what I did was I assigned 2 teams, 2 permanent teams to each team, each pod member. So that would be so basically the scheduling would be an 8-game schedule. So you would play your 3 teams in your pod plus one permanent team from each pod, each remaining pod, and then you would rotate 3 teams out of the other 2 pods every 2 years. So that would give you a home and away. And then, the next year you'll play somebody else. In 2 years you play somebody else, home and away, home and away, home and away. To kind of, keep it fresh. I mean, because if you look at the division matchups, just from Southern's case, this year will be the first year we played Valley since I think 2016. So that's basically 6 years without playing that team. So our Alabama State, Alabama A&M, those are teams that we haven't played in quite some time. Although we did play Alabama State in the spring, played A&M in 2019, but certain matchups aren't frequent. So being able to rotate these teams every couple of years would kind of freshen it up and make it easier for those teams to meet up and play more often. So for FAMU, I assigned them Jackson State and Southern. Bethune-Cookman, I gave Grambling and Valley. Alabama State, I gave Texas Southern and Alcorn. Prairie View and Pine Bluff go to Alabama A&M. For Jackson State in Part 2, I went FAMU and Southern. Grambling and Alabama State for Alcorn. Valley gets Prairie View and Bethune-Cookman. Texas Southern and Alabama A&M go to Pine Bluff as their permanent people. Southern, obviously, Jackson and FAMU, Grambling, Alcorn, and Bethune-Cookman, Texas Southern, Pine Bluff, and Alabama State, Prairie View, Alabama A&M, and Valley. So I tried my best to keep those matchups intact. I mean, obviously, everybody wants to play JSU, everybody wants to play Southern, everybody wants to play Grambling, everybody wants to play FAM. Somebody's gonna have to get left out of that mix. But I tried to keep those matchups intact. I definitely tried to keep the state rivalries intact. So that definitely that helps keep the system flowing. You're not breaking up Southern and Grambling. You're not breaking up TSU and PV. You're not breaking up any of the Mississippi rivalry. You're not breaking up the Magic City Classic, and you're not breaking up the Florida Classic. So those games are always going to be played. You keep, in this instance, you get to keep the Boom Block Classic, and you get to keep that FAMU Jackson State game, which is really booming into something. If this competitive rivalry can continue to grow, then it can probably be an actual long lasting rivalry. So keeping those matchups together can definitely help in that instance. Other than that, it kind of cultivates some fresher things, some teams that maybe don't get to play as much, and you just see where you shake out. So when you do these kind of scheduling scenarios, you definitely are gonna try to take into account your main rivalry. So somebody's gonna have to miss out on somebody, but that team you will see that team in a couple years, so you won't be without that matchup for a while. But also with the case of the SWAC football classic or whatever they're calling it, you can use that game as a non-conference affair and match up two teams who are typical rivals that don't get to play that often. They can play 2 years non-conference, if you want to do it that way. So that's my first idea, the 3-14 pod, and obviously the two top teams from overall will go to the championship. I tried to flesh it out a little bit more and maybe give teams a little bit more flexibility with rivalries and stuff. And I went with a 4-3 team pod. Now this one is a little bit more spaced out because everybody can't be grouped all together like I normally had, like I had in the first one. So the pods would be pod 1 would be FAMU, Bethune-Cookman, and Alabama State. Pod 2 would be JSU, Alcorn, and Valley. Oh, excuse me. I'm looking at I'm sorry. Let me start over. I'm looking at the wrong thing. All right. Part 1 would be Alabama State, Alabama A&M, and Valley. Part 2, FAMU, JSU, and Bethune-Cookman. Part 3, Alcorn, Grambling, and Southern. And Part 4, Texas Southern, Prairie View, and Pine Bluff. Now this one was a little bit more difficult because I wanted to kind of preserve some games and not assign everybody. Everybody wants the same people, so kind of had to break it up a little bit. So I had to break up that Mississippi trio. I tried to keep most of the state rivalries intact, so that's why I kept the Bamas together. I kept the Florida teams together. I kept the Louisiana teams together, and I kept the Texas teams together. It worked out good for me because for the Louisiana group, you have Alcorn, who's a rival with Southern and Grambling, so that works. Pine Bluff is kind of like that odd person out, so they kind of got mixed in there. And I was able to put JSU and FAMU together, which knocks off up, which allows for other permanent rivalries. And Valley just kind of slotted in to me with the Alabama teams being a northern team in the conference. So it kind of works out a little bit better than the 3-14 pod. Slightly, it does have its problems, but for pod 1, Alabama State, I assigned Southern, FAMU, and Texas Southern. Alabama A&M, Grambling, Jackson State, and Prairie View. Valley, Pine Bluff, Bethune-Cookman, and Alcorn. Part 2, FAMU gets Southern, Alabama State, and TSU. JSU gets Alcorn, Alabama A&M, and Prairie View. Bethune-Cookman gets Valley, Grambling, and Pine Bluff. Part 3, Alcorn gets Valley, Jackson, and Pine Bluff. Grambling gets Alabama A&M, Bethune-Cookman, and Prairie View. Southern gets Alabama State. Southern gets Alabama State, FAMU, and Texas Southern. In Part 4, TSU gets Alabama State, FAMU, and Southern. Prairie View gets Alabama A&M, JSU, and Grambling. And Pine Bluff gets Valley, Bethune-Cookman, and Alcorn. This scheduling scenario will go you play the 2 teams out of your pod and 3 permanent cross pod teams. And then you rotate 3 other teams every 2 years. So I still tried to keep it the same. The one, like I said, you can see that, I don't have Southern and Jackson playing each other. Although that can be flipped, you can flip Jackson and FAMU, give Jackson Southern, give Alcorn to FAMU, but that still means that Alcorn Jackson game would not be played every year. So that's one matchup that I think kind of is gonna have to kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit to maintain. I feel like the state rivalries are big, So I wanted to try to keep those together. So, if you want to flip flop some things and keep the Boombox Classic, then that's fine. I thought about doing that, but I wanted to, show Alcorn that respect and put them there. But, you can always schedule that game any way, anytime. So, that's one of them that I kind of wasn't, not really a fan of that one. Again, the top two teams from overall would go to the championship game. The last one I had was a divisionless model, similar to what the ACC is doing. And this one you would be assigned three rivals, whatever you want to call them, three permanent opponents. And then the other five teams that you would play, you would rotate every couple of years. Again, I tried to keep that as best, keep that as best as I can, so we can kind of get some fresh matchups. So for this would look like this. Alabama A&M will get Alabama State, Pine Bluff and Prairie View. Alabama State will get A&M, TSU, and Bethune-Cookman. Alcorn will get Jackson, Valley, and Grambling. Bethune-Cookman will get FAMU, Grambling, and Alabama State. FAMU will get Bethune-Cookman, Southern, and Jackson. Grambling will get Grambling will get Southern, Alcorn, and Bethune-Cookman. Jackson will get Southern, Alcorn, and FAMU. JSU will get Valley will get JSU, Alcorn, and Pine Bluff. Is that right? That's okay. I messed up somewhere. That's what happens when you try to throw this together real quick. And then Prairie View will have Grambling, Texas Southern, and Alabama A&M, Southern, Grambling, Jackson, and FAM. Prairie View, Alabama State, and UAPB for Texas Southern, and Alabama A&M, Valley, and TSU for Pine Bluff. So okay. So basically that's basically how it would go. Obviously, I have some flaws in my system right there, but you can kind of figure it out with the three teams that are assigned to each team. And like I said, five other teams you would play, they would rotate, and you would take the top two teams and play in the championship game. So that's pretty much, my idea of, some things that the league could do to change up if they so desire. If you wanted to think expansion, and I didn't dive into this, so don't. I'm not gonna throw any names out there, but if some certain things happen with some other conferences, and you wanted to add some teams, then you could probably add four more teams and make four team pods, would make it a little bit easier to kind of assign teams and things like that. So there's a bunch of different ways that you could go with this, but that's kind of where I was right now. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there and, see what you guys think. So that's going to do it for today's show. We'll be back next week with some more SWACTalk. And make sure you subscribe, man. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that little button that's going to pop up on the screen in a couple of seconds. And enjoy the rest of your day. And happy early 4th of July. And be safe out there. And we'll catch you guys on the rebound. Peace.